Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be going over the form elements checkbox. All right, I'm currently in the app builder. I'm going to go ahead to the left panel to my elements tab and to the forms section. I can see a bunch of elements and I'm going to focus on my checkbox elements in the top right corner. I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop these elements in my form. As you can see, it's a standard checkbox elements. I'm going to try and reposition these elements just to center it in our form. I'm going to go ahead and say margin left auto or margin right auto, margin left auto. So I'm just going to put some margin at the top, call it 30 pixels. And nothing much has happened here. And this is probably because our element is displayed inline. What happens if I change this to block? There we have it. It's now centered. All right, so similar to other form elements like the input elements, the text area, the checkbox is similar in the sense that it also has the app data field, the value, the managed data flow, checked, and quite a few recognizable HTML attributes. So I'm just going to go over all of these really quickly from top to bottom. All right. So the app data field is simply the field in our app data that this form element binds to. The value is going to be the value of the checkbox, right? Manage data flow. Manage data flow simply just means that are you managing the data flow or is the system managing the data flow, right? So this is false by default because the system manages the binding between the element and the application. And if you wanted to change that, all you would need to do is basically set this to true. And then you would have to handle this using an onChange event. All right. So now I have the checked attributes. This is basically going to factor in if you are managing the data flow. So basically, if you are managing the data flow, then you get to decide when this form element this checkbox is checked or not. So you have to provide something that basically helps the system show the correct and proper state of this element. Then we have our name field. This is a standard form element field. We disabled autofocus title, require draggable, non-reactive. All right. So all these are standard HTML attributes. And non-reactive is simply saying that we do not want this elements to react to app data changes. And this is not really going to be useful for this scenario, but there are scenarios where you might want to get some optimization and this will come in handy. But for now, we're just going to ignore it. All right. So if I go ahead and let's say check and uncheck, nothing really happens. If I were to go into my app data field and look for checkbox 1, I can see checkbox 1 is just an empty text. Okay. Now, if I were to go ahead and let's say change and give it a value, let's say I call checkbox 1 boy. All right. Now, if I were to click on it and check my app data, I can see that checkbox 1 says boy, right? And the system is going to say that it's checked. If I unclick it and go back into my app data, I can see that checkbox 1 is back to an empty text. So now, as you can see, the system here is handling this binding for us and is basically making sure that the state is properly managed. So let's quickly do this using the managed data flow. So in this scenario, we are going to manage this by ourselves, right? So let's say maybe we change this to call it sex, all right? And we have this one as boy. And let's go ahead and duplicate this. All right, so we're going to have 2, and we're just going to keep track of both of them. So let's say we were to click on Control left and we duplicate this. So I'm going to go ahead and just make the second one here say girl. All right. So now we have 2 checkboxes that points to the same app data field. When I click on one, it says, and I check over here, sex is boy. If I click on the other one, right, it sets that same app data field and says the sex is a girl. And as you can see now, the one that is a girl has the active state. The one that is a boy does not have that active state. all right, or that checked state. So let's go ahead and add the manage data flow to this. I'm going to just go ahead and add the manage data flow to one of them. I'm going to say that I want to manage this data flow. All right. And I have over here the onChange events. I have a function that I already wrote called basic input onChange. And it just takes in one value, which is our one parameter, which is our app data field. And it was called sex. I'm going to quickly take you into this function in my function builder, basic input onChange. And all this function is doing is that we've basically provided a parameter called app data field. And we are using this field to update, using the update client app data. We're basically setting our event target value, right, which is a system generated parameter, to our app data field. All right. So this is all that's happening here. All right. So now that we've done this, if I were to click on this checkbox and I were to go into my app data, I can basically see that, oops, let me see. All right, so that's correct, app data field and basic onChange. If I go over here, there we go. Now it's boy. All right. So now you see it's a boy, but we don't see anything. It's not checked. And that is because we are managing the data flow. So in this case, we need to say or specify when our element should be checked or not, right? And so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and change to code. And I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to say parameter dot app underscore data. Just keep in mind how app data is spelled. It's capital A underscore capital D dot sex. And I'm going to say this is when this is equals to boy, then it should be checked. Now this is standard JavaScript syntax. Just keep that in mind. So now it's checked. If I click on it again, right, because I've double clicked it, it's going to basically change this to an empty string. Let's click it again. It's back to boy. If I were to click on this one, which is the girl, and it's back to girl and the boy is empty. All right. So this is a quick walkthrough of what checkboxes are, how they work. And we've messed around with multiple scenarios, managed data flows, unmanaged data flow. All right. That's going to be it for this video. See you in the next one.